Well, there we go. We've got author James Hill. He is in the green room and going to be ready to join us here live on Amazon. And we'll talk about his many books. We're going to have fun. We'll talk about the life and interesting stuff, talk about the books, talk about his journey, and we'll be bringing him up in just a moment. I do have highlighted in the carousel. Now, James' books are available in the carousel, but what I've highlighted in the carousel right now is some teas. Stephen Smith, tea maker. He's right here in the Northwest, in fact, in Portland. And this particular one, Lord Bergamot with bergamot oil. This is one of my son's favorite. And we just finished up with the Christmas blends. There's some different types of teas that are out there, but all of these have been fabulous. Little packets with these sachets that are earth friendly. And so Stephen Smith tea maker has been great. But I can definitely recommend the bergamot tea. But of any one of the ones, Silent Night was the one that we had this last holidays with. It was a special blend with peppermint and a bunch of different stuff in there, including licorice, which I loved. And so Stephen Smith tea maker, I highly recommend that you take a look at that. But with that, we do have James Hill, and we got the cover of the book, The Emerald Lady. And I love the tall ships. If you were in my office, you would see that right over my desk, I've got a pen and ink drawing of a tall ship, just like the Emerald Lady there. But with that, James, let's bring you into the conversation here. Welcome to Amazon Live. Go ahead and introduce people. Where are you at? What's going on in your world? And let's get right into it.
Yeah, I'm James Hill, and I am in Virginia Beach, Virginia, on the East Coast. So it's a bit colder here. It's warmed up. We had some snow, a couple of snowstorms pass through. We usually don't get snow in Virginia Beach. So, we got like 6 or 7 inches before, 8 inches. And last week we got, just a couple, maybe 4 inches. Something we're more used to dealing with. But it's been quite interesting last couple of weeks. I'm originally from New York, so I am used to the snow.
Oh yeah.
I hate to say that, but yeah, I am used to the snow, which is why I'm from New York and not in New York.
Well, as they say, it's a good place to be from.
I love New York except in the winter.
Yeah, absolutely. We were fortunate. We had a chance to visit New York, Manhattan, and all of that in February of 2020, just a couple of weeks before the world shut down. And I tell you, it was February. It was a beautiful time. I was in short sleeves in Central Park. So I think we had a fortunate time in February in New York.
Yeah, you sure did. I was in Chicago a couple of years ago when it was really nice, and I was surprised because it was Chicago in the winter, and you know what you hear about Chicago and stuff
Absolutely.
like that.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes you luck out. Sometimes you luck out.
Hey, that's fabulous. Hey, so we've got a number of books. I think let me just pull this up here. The Emerald Lady. I've got this highlighted in the carousel. This is your most recent book.
Yes. Well, No, actually, the Emerald Lady, the Emerald Lady is about two books ago. It's hard
Ah,
to say because see, I bounce around from
okay.
sci-fi to fantasy to adult crime novels. So my most
Okay.
recent books are the adult crime novel because I went back to finish off that
Ah,
series.
I
So yeah,
gotcha.
they came
I
out a little
gotcha.
after the Emerald Lady. Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, let's talk a little bit about your journey as an author. Um, when did the writing bug hit you, and when did you decide that you were going to go all in and actually produce books?
All right, the writing bug hit me a long time ago when I was a kid, and we used to read comics and everything, and then Marvel comics mostly. And I
Uh
decided
huh.
that I would try to finish off the series because you know how Marvel comics were. It's like every week there was another part of that story, and we
Oh
would
yeah.
sit there, trace out the characters and everything, and I try to finish off the story, think about what should come next. So that's where I really started to really fall in love with writing, and it's been with me
Mm.
ever since. It's been with me all my life. And
Oh, that's fabulous.
yeah, and I have only characters running around my head. My father used to call me Radio Mouth because he said, I talk so much, I talk to myself, which was true. I used to talk to myself because I had people going around in my head, and we would have conversations, my
I love it.
characters and my people. So it's been something that's been with me all my life. But
Uh huh.
then uh, I would say about maybe almost 10 years ago now. Wow, almost 10 years ago. I decided I had been writing short stories and different things. And then I decided, you know what? I'm getting kind of old. I need to start really putting the work in, putting pen to paper and really getting some of these stories out. And so about 10 years ago, I started working on the Killer series with Killer with a Heart, which is the first one.
I am. Hmm.
And so I did that and I did Pegasus at the same time, well, back to back, sort of. So, and I started publishing and I decided once I learned, because I'm a programmer by trade, I've been
Ah, okay.
programming, I've been a
Hmm.
software engineer. And once I learned the ins and out of the desktop publishing industry, then I decided, okay, I want to publish my own thing because I went through the traditional publishing gauntlet.
Uh huh.
and believe me, it's not for the faint of heart and it's not very easy. And it's a lot of
Sure.
heartbreak.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a lot of heartbreak. So once I decided I would start publishing my own stuff, I also decided I should give a leg up to other new writers. And so I opened up my own publishing company, not only to publish my own work, but also to publish other people's work, other new writers, give them a way into this business because it is
Hmm.
it is a monster to get into. Yeah, it's slaying
You
the
know,
dragon.
I hear you. I've interviewed a lot of authors, and those that have gone through the traditional route, and those that have gone the self-published route, and then those that have gone kind of a hybrid route. Um, in the traditional route, they're going, if you have a book idea and you want to go the traditional route, figure it's going to take about 4 years.
That
It's going to take you a year to get an agent. It's going to take your agent a year to find a publisher, and then it's going to take them probably 2 years to work with you to get the book to the point that they want, and then you still have to go out and do all the legwork to promote it.
Precisely, and that's why I decided not to go that route because once I found out that I still had to be the one out there pushing and selling, I just
Hmm.
figured, what do I need a publisher for then? In that case, if I got to do all the after work, you
Hey, and
know,
it's available here to the world right on Amazon as
yep,
soon as you hit publish. And this is great because I love your story, and I often say that this is the greatest time ever to be alive because if you want to write a book, the only barrier to entry is your willingness to participate. Go to kdp.amazon.com, set up your account, write your book, publish it.
yep. I would suggest that people do one other thing: get
Yeah,
yourself a good editor. No matter how good a writer
absolutely.
you are, get yourself a good editor because
Get that
that's what
right.
I did. Before I
Yeah.
published my book, I went and got it. I got a very good editor. She lives in South Africa, Athena
Hmm.
Paris. I'll give her a plug. And
Thanks.
And yes, she used to teach English class in South Africa when I met her. So, you know, it's it behooves you to get a good editor.
Yeah, I definitely can second that. The couple of books or a few books that I've put out definitely went through an editor, and had I not, I would have been embarrassed,
No, yeah.
like, continually embarrassed, and so it's great. It's great to have that. So, so you decided not only to publish your book, but then to create your own publishing company to help authors get started. Fabulous.
Yes, yes. I I feel as writers, we all kind of like work together. That's the one field that I see, and you learn from each other.
Mm.
So we're the type of people that help one another, and that's just the way it is in the writing community. And like I said, I was a software engineer, and you learn that in writing software, you are not the best person in the world to review your own work. And because you know what you mean, you know what you want to do, you know what you have
Mhm.
to do, but you don't see every angle. And so you have other software engineers who come by and do what they call peer reviews or review your work, or actually just come in and try to break your code. and so and it's helpful. If you don't have
Yeah.
somebody out there willing to shoot arrows at you, you're never going to become a ninja. So uh, and the same thing in writing. You know, just to write by yourself in that bubble that we're all in as writers, we all live inside our heads, inside our little bubbles, and we write our greatest stories, the greatest things ever told. But then we need somebody on the outside looking at this and saying where they find holes, where they find mistakes, where they find things that you never thought of, you know. And so out of that kind of influence, I realized, hey, let me help other people. Let me help other writers because they have to be doing this for, I don't know how many, 30, 40 years. I kind of
Mhm.
like learned some of the things that I could teach others. And so I figured, let me help some other people because, I had enough stuff thrown back in my face from people. I said, well, this is a great story. And, they come back, yeah, it's not as great as you think. It needs work. And so after you get a couple of those and you toughen up too, that's the other thing I have to tell some of my authors, toughen up. It's not personal, but these are
Mhm.
the things that I find wrong. And also the idea, like you said, 4 years is not a long time in the publishing business. When people think that they can put out a book next week,
Mhm.
you can. It won't be a good book, but you can put out one in a week.
That's right.
You want to take some time and work on that sucker and get it together and get your story straight and all this kind of stuff before you actually put it out and it comes back to you with all these negative reviews.
Mm.
I've been
Mhm.
fortunate in that I've been getting a lot of 5-star reviews, 4-star reviews. I also got a couple of 3, 2s, and 1s. So some people just don't like what you wrote. And that's what
Oh,
I have to tell
absolutely.
some of my
Yeah.
writers. Some people just don't like what you wrote, and that's part of life.
Yeah, it's the reviews are important, but I would be suspect of someone that only had 5-star reviews.
Yes,
Because I would assume then that they're probably not real. But if you see someone that's got some fives, maybe some others that are not at five, and you read the comments, you're like, yeah, not everything is for everybody, and that's fine. That's it's variety we like.
yeah. I mean, some reviews can be pretty harsh and pretty,
Yeah.
unfair, and then some, and it's like, well, maybe the person didn't get the idea of the story or didn't get behind the story, or I have reviews where they just said, I didn't like this type of story. Okay, well, I'm sorry, you know. I don't like
Well,
science fiction. Okay, but it's a science fiction story, so I can understand that. Fine. I think I told you that at the beginning.
yeah, reviews are not the place for debate either, but sometimes when I read reviews, and I was just reading a review for a book earlier, well, just yesterday, and it the person who wrote the review is like, "Wow, if you ever write, make sure you get an editor because your grammar and spelling and punctuation are horrid."
Those are reviews you hate to see because usually they're right.
Well, I see we got Gary Powell on here, and so I just want to give a shout out to Gary and thank him for joining us here. And I'll remind everybody, let me just put this back up for the moment because we are talking with author James Hill, Amazon Live. We're on a couple other places, but if you are not watching on Amazon, go to amazon.com/live and join us there. We've got a chat box there, and you're able to communicate and ask James any questions. And we were just talking about his books, and Killer with a Heart is the one that I have highlighted in the carousel right now, uh, inspired by Marvel Comics as a young man and finishing some of those stories. Let's talk about some of these. Let's talk about the stories.
Okay.
Where did
Uh,
you start? Yeah.
I started writing. I still consider myself a science fiction writer.
Okay.
So Pegasus was the first science fiction book I wrote. I wrote some uh, short stories and things that go on to it. The dog had come back. So if y'all are wondering what am I doing back here, it's the dog is here, and yeah, that's a
Oh,
big
good, good,
solid
good.
dog.
There we
Yeah.
go. There we go.
So, but I like science fiction. So Pegasus came about because my wife at the time asked me what did I think about the SALT treaties. The SALT treaty is the strategic armamentation treaties that we
Hmm.
were going through, and that was back in I guess the 80s.
I was going to
And I
say that's been a few years, but I remember the '80s.
yeah, and at that time I told her, well, I didn't think that we were going to wind up in a nuclear war because the major powers wouldn't, shoot it out with each other. This is a no-win situation.
Hmm.
But some other countries and some other people who would look forward to the end of the world wouldn't mind doing that. And so that's where we would have trouble if it came down to it. And then I also said, but we wouldn't really get into that kind of trouble until we had some place to go. And of
Mm.
course, I was thinking about we're going to find other planets. This can't be the only livable planet in the billions and billions of stars out there. We can't
Yeah.
be the
Hmm.
only one, you know. And so
Yeah.
I said, we'll find someplace else to go. And when that happens, then we're in trouble. But I told, and it may not take that long because of the way science goes and the way development goes. It it doubles and triples every few years. So,
Sure. Hmm.
of course, in science fiction, everybody travels faster than the speed of light because,
Has
after
to.
all,
Yeah.
it's the only way to get someplace.
That's right.
Yeah. So, at some point, we're going to develop a starship. We're going to develop a ship that can at least travel at the speed of light, and that will
Hmm.
get us to the nearest star system, which is 4 light years away. And so now we have found other planets and things like that around other stars. And so
Absolutely.
it, it's not without the realm of possibility. And so
Hmm.
Pegasus, A Journey to New Eden, is sort of like a Noah's Ark story in which
Ah. Hmm.
these two people, neither one of them astronauts, one guy's an indentured servant, and the other woman, his girlfriend, soon to be wife, is the daughter of a slain diplomat. African diplomat. So she had some diplomatic tie. So they wanted her
Hmm.
on board the ship. The other guy just happened to be one of the workers for the company. And I wrote this story in the time before the globalization of businesses, before Amazon, before Walmart, and before we have all these companies that really deal internationally. And so as globalization takes hold, we're going to find that companies become more powerful than the governments. And they are going to start dictating what we can do and what the governments can't do. And so that's how this whole idea of Pegasus came around. And it's a dystopian idea because, people are pretty much bad people most of the time. There are some good people here and there, but as a whole, and in the whole of history, we have a lot of bad spots.
There
so
is.
so it's a dystopian read, but it's a very interesting read, and it's a psychological thriller because it's
Hmm.
the idea of what would you do if you were the only person left or the only people left?
Sure.
What would you do? So that's sort of like Pegasus in a nutshell.
I'll just make a note here that Abdul Jassim Al Hulal, Lal, uh, I'm probably mispronouncing all three of his names, says hello from Dubai. So
Oh, Dubai.
nice to have Abdul watching from Dubai. And again, we're talking with James Hill. And right now we're talking about Pegasus, which was the first science fiction book, a Noah's Ark type book. And one of the interesting things that I love, because I'm a big science fiction fan, and it's a great way to talk about social issues and present them in a way that maybe we couldn't in society because of whatever pressures that we have. Um, it, and you're telling us that that this kind of started from a conversation about the SALT treaties and the Strategic Arms Limitation treaties back in the 80s, and um, uh, were you focusing on some issues that maybe needed some attention brought to them as you were writing Pegasus?
Yes. One of the issues were, like you say, socialism and the way African American Black people were being treated and looked at. And
Mm,
if you notice, there's not a whole lot of Black people being represented in the future. And in science fiction, and it's funny because you always see in the movies there's one Black person in that movie. He's the first guy that's going to die in so in science fiction. He's going to go first, and it's like the guy with the red shirt in Star Trek. It
in
became
Star Trek,
yeah, it
absolutely.
became
Yep.
big. They beamed out with
Ensign
one guy with a
Expendable.
red shirt, you know. And it was funny if it was a Black guy in a red shirt, he was in trouble.
Oh
so
boy.
so my thing was I wanted to show what are we still in the future? Do we have a
Mm,
future? And what would be our contribution to the future? How will we wind up?
yeah.
And it's like things go up and they go down, up and down. It's circular. So
Yeah.
will we fall into that trap of getting drawn back into sort of like a slavery type of situation? Which you can see the
Mm,
world is not far from that in a lot of countries. You call it communism, you call it this and that, but
yeah.
basically it's still slavery. Throughout
Right.
the ages, that's what it has been. And would you actually run back into that type of a lifestyle or
Hmm.
that type of a situation? Could we actually elevate ourselves out of that? And in some cases, yeah, we can, but in some cases, no, we bring all this baggage with us. So wherever we go, are we going to bring that baggage with us?
Hmm.
And that's the moral nugget in Pegasus. You know, how do
Hmm.
we how do we advance ourselves as we advance the technology?
Right.
Because technology grows rapidly. Are we going to grow fast enough and keep up with it? Can we grow as a people, as human beings?
Sure. Yeah, that's and that really is the question. I know that way back, speaking of the 80s, back in 89 when the Berlin Wall fell and a lot of there was a whole lot of the former Soviet world and the communist world that also fell. Those governments fell, and there was a rush toward free market economies, toward capitalism. And I remember listening to one comedian, and he was saying, I don't know if it's such a great idea, all these countries embracing capitalism, because it's man taking advantage of man. But in communism, it was just the opposite.
Yeah.
I mean, when you talk about we do bring who we are with us. So
Yeah.
whatever our economic system, whatever our political system, we bring ourselves with them. And not to give it away, because I do want people. I've got Pegasus highlighted in the carousel. Here we are on Amazon Live with author James Hill. You can click on his book, take a look, add it to cart. You want to get a hold of this. Um, Without giving this away, is there a resolution? Is there a good ending to this
Ev-
story in Pegasus?
Every story has a resolution. See, you hit on the you hit on the point. Is it a good resolution?
Well,
There is a
I'll tell
resolution.
people there's
Yeah.
a resolution in Pegasus in this journey, in this arc out into the New Eden. Um, Buy the book, find out.
Yes.
Find out.
There you go. Find out.
You know, weekend's coming up. Get yourself a book. Uh, it's winter.
If you're around Virginia,
Saturday
they talk
morning.
about more snow, so you might want to get that book and huddle up and
Get a fire, put your feet up by the fire, get a copy of the book, and find out what this resolution is. And if you're in Florida and it's sunny, then put your feet in the sand and find out what the resolution is. Well, what else? What was next? So Pegasus. So so
let,
science fiction, but also
yeah,
fantasy. You've got some
I was gonna say
and crime thrillers.
let's
Crime
talk about
thriller.
let's talk about the Emerald Lady. Let's talk about the fantasy.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah,
Let's do that.
because I wrote the
I love the
fantasy
picture.
when I started doing NaNoWriMo mode. Now NaNoWriMo mode is a
Oh,
national novel writing month, right? So it comes up
yes.
in November,
Yep.
and I wanted to do it for several years, and I keep missing the date because I keep forgetting that it starts in November, and finally, a couple of years back, I finally hit it on the right day and said, "Oh, good, I'm going to start it. I'm going to do this," and it's a very different way from which I'm used to writing. Which I'm used to
Yeah.
writing is I write a few chapters, I go back, I read them, I edit them, I go forward, write a few more chapters, go back and forth as I work out these stories and work out these books. But in NaNoWriMo mode, you only got a month. You got to hit 50,000 words to win it. And you have no time to go back, no time to edit. It's like you just write. It's pure first draft writing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to write in the genre I haven't touched before because I don't want to bring any preconceived ideas into this. So I wasn't going to write a crime novel. I wasn't going to write sci-fi, anything like that. I wanted to do something I never done before. And this way I would be forced just to go. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to write a fantasy. My editor also helped me with the idea. Well, we were talking one day and deciding, what should I do and what kind of story. I said, well, I always liked pirates. I always liked that golden age of pirates and everything because pirates were very much of a uh, egalitarian, I think is the way you say that word, egalitarian society.
Mm-hmm.
The pirates, they voted for their captains, sometimes fought it out for their captains, but they shared everything. They shared everything that they plundered, right? And it was pretty much a true democracy on the boat, right? You had one guy leading the boat, the captain, but
Mm.
everybody had an equal share in whatever they did, and an equal say in what they did. So I always liked the idea of the pirates, and pirate stories always fascinated me. So I was like, okay, I'm going to write a pirate mermaid fantasy, right? Because if you're going to write a fantasy, you got to pick some time. And if you're picking pirates, then what's better thing to write about than mermaids?
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote this story with the idea, okay, I'm just going to sit down and write it. My editor loved mermaids, so she was right there with me. And let's see if I move this way. That's the ship, the pirate ship on the wall there. That's the book of. I'm sure I've seen it on
Okay.
the scrolls and everything. But that's
Yep. Yep.
the Emerald Lady. The Emerald Lady is the name of the ship that they renamed
Ah.
the
Uh-huh.
ship. So a mermaid saves this guy, Jeremy, who's a merchant marine, and she goes back. She asks her mom, who happened to be the queen of the mermaid, to help them. The ship sinks in a hurricane and everything, and so she asked her mom to send some mermaids back with her to help ferry this guy back to land. And the mother says, absolutely not. He sealed his fate when he went to sea. Let him die.
Oh.
And she had put him on that ship in an air pocket, just a sunken ship in an air pocket. So
Mm-hmm.
she decided she fell in love with him from first moment. Now, as we all know, men fall in love with mermaids on first sight. Mermaids don't necessarily fall in love with men. In fact, most stories you find out that they don't. They're out there to kill them or whatever. So she
Mm-hmm.
falls in love with this guy, and she tried to help him back. And because of that, she causes this tragic accident. And so
Mm-hmm.
the mother curses her, and she curses her that she can no longer transform back into her mermaid form. She must stay in human form, but she can't leave the sea.
Oh.
Yeah. So Jeremy, being the stalwart and gallant man that he is, said, "That's fine. I will take care of her all her life. She will never want for anything." And then the mom says, "Well, good, because as long as Shira's alive, you can't die." And then he finds out that mermaids live for 1,000 years. And so now he's tied to this woman for 1,000 years, and mom is going to make his life a living hell. as,
Oh no.
yes, as the evil queens usually do. So she sets out to torture. Well, actually, she sets out to torture both of them. She's going to make both their lives a
Oh
living
boy.
hell. And so it causes a schism in the mermaid realm. Like
Mm.
the mermaid think that's a horrible sentence, you know, and they cause a split. And now you find out that mom has been behind the scenes working against mankind for centuries
Mm.
because she has the thing against mankind and everything. And you find out that the world is actually divided up between three races: the mermaid, the men, and dragons.
Okay. This is the perfect story to write in a month
In the
during
month,
this
yes.
the National Novel Writers Month. NaNoWriMo, right?
Yes.
NaNoWriMo.
I don't write. Oh, yes.
So there you go. So you've got this great idea. What a great concept. Now you're bringing in men, mermaids, dragons. This is perfect. This is perfect stuff.
Yes.
Keep it going, James.
I, I did. It spawned two more books. It
Oh,
became a
nice.
trilogy because as I'm writing the book, I realized the story is going to be bigger than I can tell in just one book, especially once the dragons entered the story.
Hmm.
Because then you have to figure out, well, what happened to the dragons? And you find out that, of course, the mermaids have a thing against dragons, and so you know, and they kind of like release the dragon back into the world. So another thing that the mom was very mad about. And so it spawned two more books. So it became the Gemstone series. And of the Gemstone series, the Emerald Lady is the first one. The next
Okay.
one, which I'm working on now and have been working on for a couple of years now, is called the Ruby Cradle. And the story time jump. So the Emerald Lady is in the 17th, 18th century. The Ruby Cradle takes place in the beginning of the millennia. So we go back in time so we could find out what happened to the dragons and
Okay.
why do
Hmm.
not people like them. You know, why are dragons these accursed creatures?
It's interesting. I was going to ask if when you're writing these books, um, so for fans of Tolkien, of course, there's the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings series, and then for those of us that are geeks, we read like the Silmarillion, which was essentially just a compilation of his notes and the backstories that led up to this. Um, do you have volumes of notes and backstories for the mermaids and dragons and pirates?
Yes. Yeah, I'm a geek like that. And so I have all these ideas that, go with the stories and everything.
Mhm,
And so, yeah, I had ideas that went back and, all right, so what happened to the dragons? Where were they? Where are they now?
mhm,
That kind of
mhm.
thing. Why don't we see mermaids? So, and how do mermaids reproduce? How come there are no men mermaids? Come on, you want to come? Come on, come up here. Say hello to everybody.
Hey, there he is.
There he is. He's been no lick in the face. No, no, no. Look, look. We're talking to people. See?
Oh,
Yes.
there he goes. He's got
Okay.
to take a
All right, get down.
you
I'm gonna be
know,
right back. I'm gonna let him outside. Come on.
sounds good. I'm just gonna put this back up on the screen and let everyone know we are live on Amazon with author James Hill. We've got a number of books. We're talking about the fantasy story, The Emerald Lady, and it's pirates, mermaids, dragons, all in one book.
Go
It
outside.
is a
Oh,
trilogy. There is more coming
oh.
out,
Now you
so
don't want to go outside. Okay.
please stay tuned for more books from James. Is He continues to release more books,
All
and
right. I'm back. He doesn't want to leave. When when I'm on these Zoom meetings and on stuff, he sometimes figures, all right, who are you talking to? And why won't you pay me any attention? He's not a small dog. In fact, he's not even my dog. Let me tell you that right now. He's my son's dog. And he had come back to live with me because my son went to Florida and he's looking for a place that he can have and bring the dog with him. So
well,
he
there you
left
go.
for Florida. He had to come back to drop off the dog again. So the dog been back for about a couple of days now, a week or so, which he loves it here because I got the backyard and all the room and all this kind of stuff. But whenever I'm on something like this, he comes by and he has to be on camera once in a while. And he's a
Well, it
good dog.
was
90
yeah.
pounds of good dog.
Well, we all get 15 minutes of fame, right?
That's
And
right.
my belief is you shouldn't use it up all in one shot. And so there he is getting a few minutes live on Amazon. So
Yep. All right. He's going upstairs. He had enough.
that's fabulous. And so you've got the more in this trilogy coming out. And so I encourage people get the book again. It's a perfect Saturday afternoon read. Get by the fire. Or if you're in that warm climate, go out to the beach and wonder if there's pirates maybe
That's the
just
best place to read
over
is
the
on the beach,
horizon.
sitting on your boat. If you happen to be lucky enough to have a boat. I have a boat. Not that I'm lucky, but I have a nice little sail ship. I have a nice little sailboat. It's about
Okay.
20. Yeah, it's a 23-footer Coronado. So
Well, there. Nice. Perfect.
yeah, don't have a
Hey,
crew yet. So if you want to sign up and be part of the crew, we can go pirating together.
yeah, let's go. Yeah, we won't do any pillaging, but we'll do some searching. Hey,
Yeah.
crime dramas and mysteries, they are very popular. Obviously, with all of the NCIS and crime scene investigation and oh my goodness, there is podcasts and all kinds of stuff out there. Let's talk a little bit about that series, about those books.
Yes. Uh, the Killer series is written from the viewpoint of the criminals. Like you said, there's all kinds of stuff written from the viewpoints of the cops and of the investigators and everything. And then you have the other side of it, which is written from the viewpoint of the mob and different criminal organizations. And I happen to fall into that category. Uh, so the Killer series is about these two guys who grow up, and it starts off with them as teenagers, them at just getting involved in the crime life. Well, actually, let me roll that back a little bit. They were heavily involved in the crime life at that point. One guy is the son of a mobster, a mafia,
Oh
And
boy.
the other guy grew up in the South Bronx. And when I grew up in the South Bronx, I told you I was from New York. I grew up in the South Bronx. And I grew
Hmm.
up in the time period of the 60s and 70s when it was a war zone in the South Bronx. I grew
Sure.
up in
Yeah.
Fort Apache. We called it Fort Apache because they said it was like cowboys and Indians every night out there.
Wow.
That's how the cops described it.
Hmm.
So, and in New York, you have all your different neighborhoods, and some neighborhoods are more infamous or more famous than others. So, the South Bronx was one of those famous neighborhoods because of how crime riddled it was, and you can hear gunshots and things going off all the time, and
Wow.
so and you had gangs. And when I grew up, you had to have a gang to cross the street because on the other side of that street was another gang. So if you want to go across the street, you want to go someplace, you better have friends to go
Mm.
with you. And at that time, nobody let their girls leave the house, leave in front of their houses or in front of the buildings, all that kind of stuff. It was rough in the 60s, okay, in the South Bronx. So this is where my characters come from. Because after that, I moved up into the North Bronx, so a little bit further up into the Bronx, to where my mom grew up as a kid. And that
Hmm.
was a mob neighborhood,
Okay.
really controlled and run by mobsters. So I took those two influences and I put together uh, a fictionalized story of people who would live this lifestyle, who would be in this life. So these two guys, uh, Mojo Johnson, right? His name was Morris Johnson. His friend called him Mojo from the Doors song. Uh, and he gets the nickname Bulletproof because he survived a shootout in a bulletproof limousine when the mob
Oh
tried to kill
wow.
him.
Hmm.
Yeah, the mob tried to kill him because him and his friend Nikki Nails Roxy decide they're going to rob a mob money drop. Uh, it, they they're running numbers. I don't know if you know anything about the numbers game,
A
but they're
little
running
bit. Yeah. Hmm.
but they're running numbers and they're dropping this money off in a delicatessen in a store, right? So they decide they're going to rob it because Nikki realizes that these people are part of another mob family and doing business in his territory, actually his father's territory, but he figured it makes him fair game to rob them. And so they put together this plan to go rob him, and they use Morris to seduce the girl who is clueless about what's going on. The father leads the girl in the store while they make the drops. That way he can't be arrested, and he figured no one's going to arrest a teenage girl. You know,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
so he
Hide
leaves her
behind the
there.
girl.
Yeah, so he leaves her there, and they make the money drops. The bagmen drop off the money, and then they're going to go rob this place. Nikki and Morris and Nikki's gang are going to go rob this place, and not Nikki's got class. He's not going to go in there with guns and masks and hold the place up. No, no, no. They're going to get Morris to distract the girl while they sneak in and rob the place, right? Because they don't want anybody to know that they robbed the place. Yeah, best laid plans of mice and men, as they say. Not only is it not an easy place to rob, but it also takes them a while. People find out about Morris and this girl, and
Mm.
as they say, all hell breaks loose, and it starts this war between the families. They're all in the same family, Nikki's family and what they call the Banana family because of their name, Vanilla. But and it's really the teenagers that start this fight between the two families.
Mm.
So they start this mob war, and Nikki and Morris are pretty much psychos, and it's
Wow.
win at all costs. So that's the start of the story, and then you find out as things go on how really
Yeah.
criminally minded these people are, and they're very good criminals. You know, they rise quickly through the criminal world because they're also ruthless
Mm.
in their business dealings. You
Hmm.
know, there is no crime that should not be had, and so it becomes this. It's a very brutal type of story. So if you really want a thrilling, hardcore crime drama type of thing,
Yeah.
told from the side of the criminals, because there's some police action, there's some it spans all different types of things. There's police, there's the government, there's the different crime, families involved. They become international criminals throughout the stories.
Wow.
And I just finished the last book in the series. There's 4 books in the series. So it's Killer with a Heart, Killer with Three Heads, Killer with Black Blood, which just came out this year, and then the last one, which will be out sometime. Oh, well, Kill with Black Blood came out last year. That's right. That one came out last year. Killer
Hmm.
with Ice Eyes will be out this year. So, and that would be the end of the story. So you have the whole arc of the story going from them being teenagers to them growing and becoming these international criminals, all the way through to the end of the story. And I
Wow.
won't tell you what happened. You'll have to,
Yeah, I want
follow
people to
the
click on the books and add to cart, load it up on your Kindle, load the series up, get all the books.
Yes.
I'm just going to remind everybody we are talking with James Hill, author of a number of books. There's some great stuff. You got science fiction, you got fantasy, you got true crime, not true crime, but I'll say crime, mystery, thrillers. Um, James, growing up where you did, at a time that you did, that definitely gives you a different perspective. Um, and I think that anyone that is interested in CSI or NCIS or any of those shows would really appreciate this book, because again, you are looking through a different lens, uh, and getting a different perspective. But your perspective is from someone that grew up surrounded by that, by
and
the
knowing people
chaos
in that type of
of that.
life,
Yeah,
and knowing what happens on the other side of the ledger. Let's put it that way. You know,
that's right.
you
Yeah,
have some friends who are in the life, and you know some people who are in the
yeah.
life doing this and doing that, and so you hear things, as they say. You know a guy who knows a guy, and you hear something. I heard something. You know, not me, of course. I wasn't there, but I heard something.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, it's just uh yeah, I feel real fortunate because I do remember when I was growing up. Now I'm here on the West Coast, so New York was a world away, but it was not a place that was a great tourist destination. And when we went in 2020 and spent time in New York and on Manhattan and traveling around there, on the island, it there's a very good feel, I'll say right now, in New York. For those of us that are tourists and want to go see the sights and the landmarks and stuff, I never felt unsafe, I'll say.
And basically, you're not. Basically, you're not unsafe in New
No,
York. It is a rather safe place to go. And when you're in Manhattan and you're in the touristy spots of going down
sure.
Fifth Avenue and places like that, yeah, those are where the tourists go. Those are the safe places, and
No.
it really is a nice place to visit. Now, when you get out into Queens, the Bronx, when you get
Hmm.
into Lower Manhattan, Little Italy, the Bowery, some of the places I hung out, maybe not so safe. you know, you go out to
Well, with
Brooklyn, we have a thing like Bronx people don't go to Brooklyn. Brooklyn people don't go to the Bronx. Because we have neighborhoods, and we have kind of like
mhm,
neighborhood rivalries too. So it's like,
sure.
yeah, if you're from the Bronx, you wouldn't be caught dead in Brooklyn. If you were in Brooklyn, you probably would be dead. and things like that. It,
Sure.
it's a very different type of lifestyle. So when people say,
Hmm.
oh yeah, I went to New York, I went to Fifth Avenue. Yeah, that's a nice spot to go to. Yeah, that's
Right,
fun to
right.
go to. Yeah,
That's right.
you should go to. It's like when I went to Jamaica. I go to different places. It's like you get off the boat in Jamaica. They take you to the nice touristy spot. But you want to see the real Jamaica, you find some Jamaican cab driver and tell, "Hey, take me up into the mountain." I
Hmm.
want to see
Yep,
some
yep.
real. I want to see some real Jamaican life. I want real Jamaican food, not what you give the tourists. And
Yep.
get in the cab, and the guy drives you up there into the mountain, and you go to this little hovel, and it's a nice place, and people are wonderful, and it's a great time.
We did the same thing in Mexico, and we're in Puerto Vallarta, and it's Fiesta Americana, $150 a night or whatever, and everything. Uh, it's just like being anywhere in the U.S., right?
Right.
Food, whatever. And then we rented a car, and I drove up to Tepic, Nayarit, which is a little town. It's the capital of the state, Nayarit, Tepic, between Puerto Vallarta to the south, Mazatlan to the north, and $10 a night in the best hotel in town on the plaza, eating soup out of the from the little food carts, and that's real life, and
Yeah, and that's the
much
real
more enjoyable
Mexico.
actually.
Yeah, that's the real
Yeah.
Mexico. I lived in San Diego for a couple of years, and
Uh-huh.
I lived in a spot that was just over the border. You know, on the American side, I couldn't go across the border because I had a government job, so you weren't allowed. One guy said,
Uh-huh.
"Oh, I want to go," and they're like, "Yeah, okay, fill out these papers." Okay, I want to go this weekend. They said, "No, you're going to go in about 3 or 4 months because they're going to take that long for you to get clearance to go." And I was like, "What makes you think they're going to let you cross the border?" you know,
Wow.
you have a government job. You just can't go across the border. But it was like much cheaper because some people say, well, "Why don't you come across the border and get an apartment over there?" It's like one third the price. And I was like, "Because I can." So people who live in Mexico, Americans living in
Mm.
Mexico, because it's so much cheaper, will cross the border every day and go to work in America.
Yeah,
Fully Americans. You know, but it was cheaper to live across the border on the other side of San Diego. You know,
absolutely. Yeah.
and and it's really nice. It's really nice in some spots.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other spots that are not so nice, and that's the way it is around the world. I've been to a couple of different places, and some
Mm-hmm.
places are nice, and then some places are not so nice,
Yeah.
and they're all in the same country.
Well, there you
Sometimes
go.
blocks away from each other.
Hey, James, we're winding down the time here, and it's just been so much fun talking with you and getting to know you better, and the books and sharing those out in the stories. And so I thank you for that. I just want to encourage everybody, uh, follow James' author page. When you click on him, you can go to his author page and you can follow. So every time he releases a book, which he's got books coming up, you'll
Yes, I
get
do.
notified, and you'll
Yes,
get
I do.
notified of those new books. And uh, books are great for yourself. They're great gifts. So make sure you click add to cart, send it to yourself, send it to friends, be the hero. What a great gift. It's wintertime. Get some good books. Get by the fireplace. Get
And not just
lost
my books.
in the
Go to
story.
Rock Hill Publishing and get some of my other authors' books, because I
There
have
you
some
go.
great authors who write romance, who write sci-fi, who write fantasy, uh, adult novels. So we have a lot of stuff, and I only pick stuff that I feel are very worth it. Stories that are
Nice.
good, well written, well told stories. So if it passes me, then it's good,
Well, there
because
you go.
I don't like to read bad stories.
Hey, and thanks for starting your publishing company and giving new authors a leg up. That's a way to pay it forward. I, I just want to, as we wind down here, if people are thinking about being an author, they want to learn more about the authors that you're working with, or they want to learn more about you, maybe hire you to speak or something like that, how can people get a hold of James Hill? What's the best way to contact you?
You can contact me through the publishing company. It's rockhillpublishing.com. All one word, rockhillpublishing.com. And on that site, you'll find all the books. You'll also find an About Us, and you can send me a message through there. You can contact the publisher, contact the editor. You can learn about all of our authors. Uh, we also put out a newsletter every month, so you can subscribe to the newsletter. If you subscribe to the newsletter, you get to download one free ebook from the website
Well,
of
there you go.
whatever one you
There's
want. So there you go.
free is a very good price. So,
Oh yes, we
hey,
love free.
James, thank you for taking the time and coming with me here live on Amazon and sharing about the books and your journey. Fascinating stuff. This has been a fun time.
It has been fun for me, and thank you for having me. I
Yeah,
really
you bet.
appreciate it.
And I'm going to send you out to the green room, wind this one down, and but I'll be back with you in just a couple moments.
I'll be here.
We've been having fun with James. We got a picture of the Emerald Lady, and this is the fantasy book Dragons, Mermaids, Pirates. You got it all right there. We've got crime books from the criminal's perspective, written by James, who grew up understanding, surrounded in this culture, and so definitely give you a different perspective. And then science fiction, Pegasus, the journey to the New Eden, uh, something for everybody. Uh, I'm just going to say, grab a book, grab a bunch of books, add them to your Kindle, get by the fire, put your feet in the sand, read a book, whatever works for you. But they also make great gifts. And so, with that, I'm going to wind this one down. We've been having fun talking to James today. Thank you to everyone that joined and the comments. I definitely appreciate it. Make sure you're following James' author page and follow me here live on Amazon next week. H.C. Kilgore will be here and we'll be talking with her about her new book, recent book out. So we are here live on Amazon. And with that, I'm going to sign off and tell everyone have a fabulous day. Cheers.